For me, selfishly, this is where I was given roots and community and mentorship in my fiber journey. And it feels, I feel a little bit silly to start to cry when talking about that, but it's not silly. It's not silly at all. Hi, my name is Mark and welcome back to the channel. Today I'm sitting down to work on a project and to share some news with all of you. My news is exciting, but also stressful and emotional, and my head feels so full of things that I just need to sit down to unpack everything, and I wanted to do it with all of you. So if you're interested in working on one of your projects, decompressing a bit, and spending a little bit of time together, then stick around and let's get into it. Okay, first things first, I need to put a couple of markers into my project so that I can keep track of what I'm doing while I'm talking to you. I'm currently working on a little watch cap, a little hat, a little beanie that I don't want to come too far down my head. It'll just sit kind of above my ears. Maybe it might sit over my ears a little bit, but this is the St. James cap, St. James hat by Francesca Hughes. It's here on the screen, and I was looking for something specifically to use a special skein of yarn for. So let me show you what I've got so far. Here is my yarn for the project. This is from Les Garçons, and I had never seen Les Garçons yarn in person before visiting what I found to be a really magical, really special yarn shop in Colorado. I was in Fort Collins and the Denver area last fall, for my friend Joel's wedding. And Joel and Fee had the most beautiful wedding. I got to be in the wedding party, so I was around for several days that week for setup and rehearsals and then all of the festivities. And it was such a beautiful experience. Two really wonderful, loving people, both with big families. They each have lots of brothers. So there were all of these brothers, older and younger, around, helping and celebrating and loving, and it just made for such a wonderful atmosphere. And while I was in Denver, I went to a handful of yarn shops, as many as I could, which of course was a great opportunity, a great experience, one of my favorite things to do. And when I was at one of those yarn stores, the Tangled Ball, or A Tangled Ball, in the Denver area, the person I met there recommended that if I had time, I should try to get to My Sister Knits. Now, My Sister Knits is up in Fort Collins, Colorado, and at this point I was in Colorado Springs, which was not nearby, and it wasn't necessarily going to be on my path back through Denver and back to the airport when it was time to leave Colorado. But I thought, what's important to me? And one thing that's very important to me that I get very excited about is yarn and a great yarn shop. And so I looked it up online, read some reviews, tried to find out as much as I could, and then I thought, okay, on Saturday before I need to fly home, I'll make the trip. So I started my day early, drove up to Fort Collins, and was blown away by a remarkable yarn shop, a remarkable community and experience. So I have some footage from that visit that I plan to put together for a video of its own, and I'll talk more about some of the little things I picked up during that yarn shop visit. But for now, one of the things that I got on that trip is this skein of yarn from Les Garçons, and I'm going to put the information about the yarn here on the screen because the label has been tossed, long gone, so I don't remember exactly what color I'm working with here. I think the weight is a DK or sport. So I was looking for a project that I could complete with one skein of this really beautiful DK or sport weight yarn, and I wanted something that I could wear, and use, and I made a couple of hats last year, and I shared those hats here on the channel. And one issue I have with a lot of beanies, a lot of hats, is that they don't really fit my big head in a super comfortable or flattering way. So typically I'm making the largest size in a hat pattern, and that's fine. But once it's actually on my head and I need to pull it down or keep it over my ears or have it tilted back enough on the forehead that I can still see and use my peripheral vision, it just always feels a bit funny, and I think looks a bit funny. So I'm crossing my fingers that a watch cap, a shorter beanie that really just sits at the top of my head, will be a better look. And I've wanted something like this ever since watching Gilmore Girls and seeing Jackson, Suki's husband, and the little hats that he wears. So sometimes I'll look for patterns for that hat, and I've considered making those before, but I never really found the perfect looking pattern, and I didn't have the right yarn previously. So now that I've got the yarn, I looked for some watch cap patterns. I found the St. James hat, which fit the weight of yarn I had. I did a little bit of swatching and found the size I should make from that pattern. And I started this maybe 2 months ago when it was still winter time. And due to some little mistakes on my end, I needed to pull back and start over. So after finding this beautiful yarn and discovering it on a trip that was important to me at a store that I felt was special, that I belonged at, I thought this would be the perfect pairing to finally make a project that I've been dreaming about with yarn that has a story. So I'm working away on the hat. Hopefully it'll be finished in the next week on some of my travels, and I'll be able to show you the finished object to talk a little bit more about it, because there have been a couple of my own errors along the way that I've had to tend to. And I always like being able to talk about a project and what goes right and what goes wrong and how we navigate all of that. So let me put some markers in, because I'm working a slight rib here. I have something like a bundle of 10 stitches and then 1 purl. So I get little separated columns. Eventually this band will be folded up. So I'm not even really on the body of the hat yet, based on how it all gets folded and constructed and worn. So let me put some markers in. I need to put them about every 10 or 11 stitches, just so as I'm talking to you, I'm not going to start making mistakes. When I can, I like to get away with not using a million markers. I think it's nice if a project has maybe just one special marker at the start of a round. Sometimes on a sweater, I'll put a marker at the beginning of round and then another at the other half, whether that's the other underarm or the other part of the yoke that's just halfway across, just to give me a little benchmark. But in this case, for something like a hat that doesn't have that many stitches to begin with, I don't want to be stopping to pass so many markers. Sometimes I find a marker can mess with the tension of a stitch right before or right after. So I like to be as marker free as possible, but at the same time, I know how valuable markers are. I know what they can do to keep us in our pattern, to keep us from making mistakes. And in this scenario where I need to be looking at you and not at my work, I need to put some in so I can feel the marker before each change in the pattern. So please bear with me as I make my way around placing all of these markers. Okay, we've got our markers set, and now I'll be able to hopefully knit along without making too many mistakes. Sometimes when I sit to film, I don't have a great project in front of me to be working on, and then I don't really knit while I'm sitting and filming. The same thing happens on our Patreon Zooms, that I don't always have a great project with me. And so I sit down and I'm, of course, looking at people and having conversations and reading things in the chat box. So I can't be staring at my work, and I can't be counting, and I can't be staring at a chart. There are a lot of things that don't work well for that. So one resolution for this year is to have projects that better fit my day-to-day activities. And I've told people recently that I think I'm going to start embracing socks and the life and path of a sock knitter. I always say that I don't knit socks, that I won't knit socks, because I'm a sweater guy. I like to have a sweater. I like to have something a little bit bigger, something worn as outerwear. It pains me a little bit to think that all of the care, all of the time and effort and artistry that goes into making socks will just be shoved into my dirty shoes. So we'll see. But I think I'm approaching that point where I'm really seeing the benefit of having a small project, having something that travels really well, and at times having something that is able to be worked on with less focus. There are plenty of socks out there that are as complicated or more complicated than anything else you would ever knit, but you can of course do a sock that's mostly stockinette and you're just knitting around. And then there are times where you have to do the magic of a heel turn and pay attention to short rows and your count and all sorts of other things. But a sock can be a pretty good vanilla project that you pick up and work on when you have little bits of time here and there. So I'm potentially moving a bit towards that, and we'll see how that unfolds here on the channel. So I'm rambling, I'm putting things off. My mind feels so full. So let me start to unpack and tell you all sorts of news for why my mind feels so full. So part one is that tomorrow, Ned and I leave for a few days in Chicago as part of a concert tour that we've been doing for the last week or 2 weeks now. So we'll be in Chicago for a few concerts, and then from Chicago we fly to London. And we're in London for a short week for more concerts, more rehearsals, more concerts. It's busy, so it's not like we just get a vacation in Chicago and a vacation in London, but we still get to be in cities that are special, big cities, places where there's a lot to do, a lot of good food, potentially a lot of shopping, potentially a lot of yarn. So we'll see how all of that unfolds. But for now, it's kind of veiled under the guise of work, which makes it a little less enjoyable. We're not just going on a trip. So we head to Chicago tomorrow. We'll be there for a few days. We head to London on Monday. We'll get there Tuesday. And then we're in London for a short week. And then my mom flies over and the two of us will go to Shetland. And I don't know if I've officially said this on the channel. I feel like I did at some point. Maybe I did briefly, but I definitely flew right by the information. So we're heading to Shetland because anytime I have the chance to travel overseas and the flight is part of work, a work obligation, I try my best to take a trip somewhere, to do something that will be really special, really enjoyable, that I wouldn't be able to afford to do without tacking it on to the end of a work trip. So we'll be working in London, we'll be busy, it'll be kind of a whirlwind, but when that's over, my mom and I are going to head up to Shetland and we're going to spend about a week in a beautiful house, an Airbnb, close to the water, kind of remote, still, I think somewhere on the main island, but it's going to be incredible. And I'm really looking forward to that because I feel like by the time we get there, things will have slowed down a bit and I'll be able to think clearly and enjoy everything a bit more. But right now, really since Christmas, my schedule for any performing work I do, along with Ned's schedule, it's just been out of control, where we've been home for just days at a time. I don't think we've been home for a full week since well before Christmas, which is challenging. We don't like to live out of suitcases. We like to live at our home. We like to be with our animals. We like to have the flexibility to see the people we love, to just make those decisions with more freedom, that you're not limited to the hotel you're staying in or the clothes you packed in your suitcase weeks prior or the yarn you brought with you. You know, if I'm here, I can really finish projects, I can pull things out, I can work with more freedom. So the thing that's really, really clouding my head is that amidst all of this travel and craziness and lack of time being home, we have decided and been presented an opportunity to move. And I know I'll get emotional as I talk about it because moving is emotional. And as I just said, we love our home. And our home is more than this hot, unair conditioned house that we live in here in northeastern Ohio. Home is the people and the community. And for us, this is where we first lived together, and it's where we were married and had so many wonderful family members and friends, loved ones from all over the place come to celebrate that with us. And for me, selfishly, this is where I was given roots and community and mentorship in my fiber journey. And it feels, I feel a little bit silly to start to cry when talking about that, but it's not silly. It's not silly at all. Because the love and the investment people make is what life is about. I feel like I haven't cried in a YouTube video in a long time. When things started to unfold and opportunities started to align and present themselves for the possibility for us to move and sort of uproot our lives, there's excitement, of course, for what that chapter will bring. And I'll talk about that later when it's not time to focus on the things and the people we'll leave behind. So we're, of course, excited, and I think this will usher in a new part of our lives where we feel that we are building our careers, that we're blossoming, that we are, connecting as much as we can with our paths, with our talents, with the things that we should be doing. And hopefully in all of that, we can make a difference in our new community and continue to connect like I do here with this community and in our music making and all of that. But I just want to say a few things about what it's meant to be here and how grateful I am to so many special people who have believed in me and chosen for crazy reasons to be my friend. And all of that is so hard to say goodbye to. You're not saying goodbye to it. It's not an ending. A friendship doesn't end, a relationship doesn't end. But of course it's harder when you're not in that physical community, when people are no longer immediately tangible to you. And I'm so grateful for our cell phones and things like FaceTime and Zoom, that it is easy enough to be able to talk to someone and tell a story and laugh with someone and feel connected. But it's not the same. And my heart just aches for having to leave people and communities and places behind. And I've moved a lot in my life. Never as a child. I always lived in the same house, and I was so jealous of kids that got to move because I thought you get a new bedroom or you get a new yard and you get new neighbors. Maybe there are kids who live across the street and you'll get a new best friend or something. But in my adult life, this will be the longest I've ever lived somewhere, which has been about 6 years here in Cleveland. And everything besides that has been much shorter, where I'm somewhere just for a year or 2 years for a school program or a degree or a job opportunity. And sometimes that's easier if you know going in that you're only somewhere very temporarily. Maybe you keep your part of yourself guarded and you don't quite make those same connections. Maybe you don't love that hard or share that much of yourself with people, or maybe you do and it's painful every time you have to go. But for me, I think the difference is that here in Cleveland, this is the first place that we really felt like we were living as adults. We weren't students. We were out finally in the real world, able to try our luck and put ourselves out there to see what sticks and how far we can go and what opportunities we might be able to take hold of. And I think we've had a lot of beautiful experiences and we've built, I think, some success. I watch my husband's career grow and grow, and I'm so proud of him. He's just incredible. He's so talented and so smart and puts in so much hard work. And I'm so blown away that any of this knitting and crying I do on the internet has found a community. And I'm just so grateful and humbled by anyone who comes across the parts of me, the parts of myself that I share on the internet, and they identify, or something about it draws them to spend more time with me or leave a comment or actually start engaging to where we become friends and then we have a relationship. And I say all the time that this has been a huge influence in my life to remind me that I have worth, that everyone has something to say, everyone has a unique way to view the world and to go through life. I don't need to keep rambling in that direction, but I'm so grateful that anything here that I started to daydream about and put out on the internet has been able to turn into this community and this career and this journey for me, because it's such a wonderful thing and a wonderful place and a wonderful group of people. So I am so grateful that even with a move, even with relocating and having our lives look very different, none of this will go away. I'll still be able to connect in the same way here. And that community will never disappear or never be pulled out from under me. It is so challenging and so hard to say goodbye to everyone from Around the Table Yarns. And it's not goodbye forever, but it is a bit of a goodbye. There will be more distance between us. I won't be able to just go and be there all the time in person. I still can't really think straight because there's a lot in my head. There's an ongoing list of things that need to happen quickly. We're moving soon just because of the way things have unfolded. And with all of our travel, we have something like 6 days total, 3 days this week. This is day 3 of those 3 days. And then we'll have another 3 days in 3 weeks' time to finish packing everything we want to take and get it loaded up on a truck and then start our move. So please send us your strength, send us your energy to help, because it's stressful. And I think my mind is going to be pretty clouded for the next couple of months as all of that is happening, because it's a lot. And in a perfect world, we would be home for 2 or 3 months and we could more slowly and more diligently go through, sort through things, pack them carefully, keep an organized list of everything, have an organized plan. But that's not our scenario. That's not the way life is happening right now. And that's okay. So please think of us as we struggle during this time to get it all done. So I wanted to share that first update because at this point we have told our closest friends, our closest loved ones, face to face, which came along with tears every time. And I know that people at Around the Table Yarns are starting to share that information with customers who come in there. So I wanted to be able to share it here far and wide for anyone who is looking for me or expecting to see me here or there. And again, when my mind's a little less crowded, I'll be able to come on and talk about what our next steps and what our next chapter will look like. It's all good, but it's just different. And I'm emotional. I wear my heart on my sleeve. And this has come quickly and it's come unexpectedly for me and for Ned. So I'm just processing all of the emotions, high and low, right now. So thanks for listening and for caring, if you care. And it's okay if you don't. If you don't know me and you just got here, it's totally fine. So anyway, I'm working on my project. I'm working on small things. Because I'm going on this trip, for the first time, I've actually decided that I'm not going to bring a sweater project. And I don't think I've ever taken a trip as a knitter where I'm not working on a sweater. Sometimes I'll have multiple projects with me, small and large, but I always have a sweater. And that requires a lot of yarn, a lot of supplies. And when I'm working on it, it takes up a lot of space in my bag. So I thought, I don't need to do that. I don't need another stressful variable on this trip. I'm sure that I will have a lot of knitting time available to me because we have some long flights. I have a very long train ride, and the train ride is probably when I'll get to do a lot of happy knitting. But it doesn't have to be a sweater. So I'm giving myself the freedom, the permission not to take a sweater with me, period. So I'll finish this hat. It shouldn't take too long because it's little. Hopefully I'll get this finished in the next few days, perhaps on my Chicago trip or maybe on my flight over to the UK, and then I'll be able to use it. One reason I wanted to get this done, even though it's hot now where I am, is because it will be cold. It will be really windy, possibly very wet, but definitely chilly in Shetland. And I'll have a good sweater, I'll have a raincoat, I'll have other layers, gloves to keep me warm as we're out and about, but I want something for my head. And instead of having a larger beanie or winter hat that doesn't fit my weird head well, I want to have this little watch cap because I think it will sit snugly atop my head. It might look terrible, and if it does, I'll be really upset because I just want a hat that's going to look normal on me. So fingers crossed it looks amazing and I feel good. But as I'm out and about, especially if I try to turn the camera on and record any special moments or take any good pictures in the crazy wind, I know that my hair will be ridiculous and I would rather have a hat on and have that be what goes in all those pictures and videos. So hopefully this will be done soon and I'll be able to check in and show it off, share it in some spectacular, special places. Besides that, I think I'm going to take one skein of sock yarn from my lovely wall of yarn behind me. And I've got several yarn shops on my path ahead of me. I'm going to take a set of, I'm going to take a set of interchangeable needles that match my gauge and what I need to make a pair of socks with fingering weight yarn, and a long cord so I can magic loop the socks. But I'm really interested in trying some flexi flips. So I think if I can find some flexi flips in my yarn shop adventures in the next week, then I'll probably get a set and attempt to do my sock knitting with flexi flips and see if that's a better sock life for me than magic loop. I'm fine with magic loop, but I don't love it. I like double pointed needles deep down. I don't want to be working my socks on double pointed needles just for the ease of packing it away and picking it up and traveling. So we'll see. I think the flexi flips are a very good sort of hybrid. I know it's still a double pointed needle situation, but that's why they're flexi and that's why they flip. So that's my plan. I'm going to take this hat. I'm going to take a skein of sock yarn. I'm hoping to buy another skein of sock yarn at a yarn shop in the Chicago area. And then I'm going to be open to finding something special. If I'm knitting a lot and I feel like, oh, I'm going to run out of knitting, I'm going to be in London and in Shetland, where there's yarn galore and inspiration galore. So I'm just leaving that open to letting some of that yarn, a souvenir yarn purchase, be my project. And that's fine. So we'll see what unfolds. I've never tried that before. I always take the start of a sweater or a sweater that's got a lot of meat, a lot of hours of knitting ahead, and that's my project for a trip. But it can be cumbersome. And as I talked about a little bit earlier, it's not so easy to pull a whole sweater out of your bag and start working on it for 5 minutes when you have 5 minutes to knit. Where something small like this hat or something even smaller like a sock, I think will be easier for me to just have in my lap, to have on the tube, to have on the train, to have on the plane, to have on the ferry, to have on the bus. We're going to be doing all sorts of travel. So I think that might be more successful for me to actually be knitting. And why? Why do I have to be knitting? Because it makes me happy, because it helps me think straight, because it grounds me, and because it captures all that memory. And I want to remember all sorts of things about the trip. So I think I need to knit those memories right into my projects. Okay, I think that wraps it up for the general sketch of things I wanted to make sure to share today. I'm always scared to share news of change with people because you don't know how people will react and who it might hurt. I don't want to disappoint people, all of that. So I'm always very anxious to share, which is weird because I have this channel where I share all sorts of stuff, but I am. So I feel better already having sat down to share this news, the events that are going on now, because it's big. And as you know from my sobbing, I'm emotional about it. And I didn't go into detail earlier because I just think I would cry and cry and cry. But to the people, and you know who you are, to my amazing mentors, to my best friends here in Cleveland, it pains me so much to say goodbye. But it's not goodbye forever, but it is a form of goodbye, and that's hard. So I don't take it lightly, and I just appreciate so much the investment that you've made in me. So I want to make sure I'm saying it. At this time, I'm going to go check a couple more things off of my to-do list, make sure that I have most everything gathered for my packing, my suitcase for these trips, so that I'm not doing it last minute tonight. And in a perfect world, I would be able to really take my time and carefully go through this beautiful craft room, going through every item, packing it away nicely, talking about it with you, sharing stories. But I don't have the time to do it in this scenario. So I'm hoping that maybe if I can get things packed up here, that on the other end of things, when I'm unpacking and getting to set up a new yarn room and a new place where we will spend future time together in videos, then maybe on that end of things, I can go through, talk about some of the things that I have and share more stories. So if there's anything that you would like to hear about, or a type of video that you would enjoy on the other end of things, the unpacking and the setting up and the dedicating of a new yarn space, please let me know, because that'll be happening 2 or 3 months from now, once the travel is over and once we've made it to our new place. But I've got a lot to pack. There's so much. Anyway, I'm so grateful for you. I'm always grateful for anyone who comes to one of these videos and finds something worth sticking around for. So I appreciate it. We don't have any upcoming Patreon Zooms because of the travel schedule. I don't know what my internet connection will be like once I get to Shetland. If it's strong enough, I'll try to have a Zoom while I'm there. And then when I come back, as I mentioned, we've got about 3 days to put everything else in boxes, get it onto a truck, and then start moving. So I will have May dates for Patreon, but I don't have them scheduled yet. If you want to spend time over in that community, you can always find out how to do it in the description box below, or the description box below, or the pinned comment below this video. You can find me on Instagram. You can find me on Ravelry, and I just appreciate you so much. I'm so lucky to have the people that I get to see tangibly in my local community, but I'm even luckier because I get to connect with such wonderful, such generous, such brilliant crafters all over the world. So I really appreciate you. As always, happy knitting, happy crocheting, happy crafting to you, and hopefully I'll see you in the next one. Bye.